So I think that kind of a trajectory, that kind of those steps need to be built, and I think we're just very close to that with the support of IB and others. We're heading in that direction. That is just the correct way of doing it. The other point that I wanted to make is that in a system which has judicial congestion and which has a very sluggish litigational landscape, I think it is the right to access to justice, which is a fundamental right. Right to access to justice necessitates that there have to be other routes to resolving your disputes. So when we say, it's traditionally said that right to life includes right to access to justice. Now, access to justice does not mean going to court alone. So I think it is about time that we start considering that access to justice actually means access to resolution of the dispute, a forum where I can resolve my disputes. So where there is such huge congestion, it is now an obligation on the state to provide these avenues, including mediation, including arbitration. So when I say I have a right to access to justice, it includes mediation, it includes arbitration, and it does not, the traditional notion of having right to access to justice go to court, I think needs rethink. We need to include this into it. Secondly, I would also request that while we sort of refashioning our mindsets, we must think of ADR will stand for alternative dispute resolution. For a minute, we fashioning our mindsets. We must think of ADR will stand for alternative dispute resolution. For a minute, we sometimes think it's a separate little system on the side. These are the courts, and then there is ADR, and should we go to that side? I think that also requires a little rethink. I think ADR or all these other avenues are complementing the justice system. They're part and parcel of the justice system. So to think that ADR is yet some other entity outside the justice system would be wrong. The justice system provides multiple avenues to decide your disputes, one being the court, but there are other avenues also. They're part and parcel of one big justice system. And if you were to think like that, that makes things far more clear, rather than thinking that ADR is some separate entity that we go to as if we're just leaving the justice system and going somewhere else. That's not how it is. It's one big justice system which includes mediation as an option to resolve dispute, because justice system is nothing but service delivery of dispute settlement. So dispute settlement, one way is to do mediation, arbitration, and then also the courts if need be. So do not think of the courts to be the only mechanism as a justice system, and this being some sort of a contraption or on the side. No, it's not. It's just one big part and parcel, and we've been now talking about it jurisprudentially also, that it's one big justice system and everything complements each other. So my request would be that we must change our mindset and start looking at taking our disputes to mediation and arbitration rather than rushing to the courts, and the courts should come at the end. And I just want to quote this Sandra O'Connor, who was from the Supreme Court, was at the Supreme Court of the United States, and she said going to courts should be the last recourse if there is nothing else left. I think that is the mindset change that we require, because either everybody, just rushes to court, stay order le lo, ye kar lo, wo kar lo. That's not how economies run, that's not how countries run. Because if you were to look at today, if you were to examine the litigational, culture today, it is nothing but bails and stay orders. I don't know, there are lawyers sitting here, very rare would you see a main case getting decided, because there's so many cases, there's so much rush in the courts that they're just doing, quite, work like bails and stay orders. So a country or a nation can't progress on the basis of stay orders and, bails. We need to substantively decide. One other point that I wanted to make, which gives mediation a great philosophical value also compared to, in litigation, you might lose out on a relationship. You might sever a relationship in litigation, because litigation could have any sort of results that, but in mediation, you keep your relationships, and that's what I wanted to add that we must think of a communal relationship must always stay and should not go away. You also realize that litigation has its own pitfalls. Lawyers are sitting here, and you understand that adjournments, strikes, I mean, very frankly, we talk about this amongst ourselves, that these are very chronic problems with litigation. So fixing litigation would be a big challenge, and maybe it is done at some stage. But it is very important to bring in this new system of ADR into the mainstream and think of it as a mainstream system. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm so happy that Dr. Abdul Fareed and his team is here with the Malaysian International Mediation Center. I invite them to come to Islamabad, visit the Supreme Court this time or next time, and also visit our Federal Judicial Academy, build linkages with that also. We look forward to working with you. I'm so happy that IBA has already reached out to you and you're training people. Training is certainly a very essential component of this, because we've trained a number of judges in Pakistan earlier, and we are, inshallah, going for our first pilot ADR center, court annexed in Islamabad in a couple of months. And so judiciary's focus is to have a court annexed arbitration center, because we think we can easily migrate cases. And our experience in Lahore has been that thousands of cases migrated in a couple of months, because a number of areas like family and contractual matters and commercial matters, which are just sitting in the courts unnecessarily, could be taken out. So you clean up the litigational area. It helps the judicial system work. So we can take that out, and court annexed is something that we want to focus, but we fully support private sectors like IBA and others who are doing work, and we support that, certainly. And I think the idea of ADR, the time has come. I'm quite clear on that. And we just need to keep pushing, and it will take over. But I request everybody to change your mindset. God forbid you have a dispute tomorrow, do not rush to courts. And I request all the lawyers that on your table, the first thing is not to rush to the court and get a stay order. Please, let's negotiate, let's settle. That's what our religion also talks about, sulah and settlements that help societies with stronger.
कराची में जस्टिस मंसूर अली शाह तकनीक से खिताब कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने कहा, पाकिस्तान अब तक सिंगल ट्रैक पर है, हर तनाज़ा अदालत में जाता है। आदमी सतह पर 1 मिलियन लोगों पर 90 जजेस हैं, हमारे पास 13 होते हैं।